and abusive. It was already emotionally abusive, but there was one night where I very nearly lost my life. And I don't say that lightly. There were moments when I was being choked, and I had my head smashed into a wall, and my head was split open. I had to go and get stitches the next day, and it was very violent. There was alcohol involved, so the person in question would, if he had been drinking, this would exacerbate things. And basically, I found myself as a poster girl for disempowerment. And even then, I was teaching yoga, I was talking about women's liberation, the liberation of Shakti, but I was the poster girl for disempowerment. And I didn't leave for...
I am so excited to introduce today's guest to you guys. Today, Dr. Sarah Coxon is here with us, and she's an archaeologist turned yoga teacher, activist, author, and business mentor for magical women. She helps women dig deep into their own inner magic, build profitable and sustainable businesses, and live their Dharma, not their conditioning. Sarah is also the author of The Way of the Priestess, a reclamation of feminine power and divine purpose, which is both a personal memoir and a call to arms for any woman that feels trapped in a social cage that stifles her truest expression and longs to live an unapologetically fulfilled life. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so funny listening to that introduction and being like, is that me?
It's like, yep, I did all of this. Now, let me ask you, what is your reason you feel that you exist?
Wow, let's go straight in there. I love it. I feel like the reason that I exist is to leave this planet a little bit brighter and a little bit more healed than when I first came in, like in simple terms, just to feel like I've contributed in some way to people's lives and made a difference.
That's a good reason to be existing.
Yeah.
No, we don't know. My audience doesn't know you, has never heard of you potentially. If they have, this is awesome. But who are you? Where did you grow up? Where are you now? What's going on in your life?
Oh my gosh. So, well, I'm originally from the UK, but I haven't lived there for over 5 years. I'm now living in the Algarve in Portugal. It's a very long story as to how I came here, but I will try and keep a very brief introduction. So basically, many years ago, I decided at the age of 18, I was going to go and become an archaeologist. And I felt this real kind of longing to connect to the past. I had a sense that there was I kind of sensed there was something that our modern society was missing. Like I felt really disconnected from myself. I felt really disconnected from nature, and kind of had the feeling that maybe people in the past, they kind of had it sussed, So I went down the academic route. I did my degree, and that turned into a master's, and then I did my PhD. And, I started to immerse myself in the ancient past. But the thing was that although I was really fascinated by the archaeology and what I was learning, actually being within the academic system just was not aligned for me. It ticked the box in the sense that I was doing what a good girl should do, and I was getting good grades, and my parents were really proud, and she's going to become a doctor and all of this stuff. But that was about it. I felt that my creativity was being stifled. I felt that I could only be a version of myself, and it wasn't the most expansive version of me. Felt like I had to edit myself really carefully, and I couldn't show my spiritual side. I couldn't show my kind of witchy side, and it all kind of came to a head when I was 24. I think most of us have these experiences where we have a before and an after, and that before and after was the death of my brother. So he died. He was 33 years old. He died from an accidental drugs overdose. And that was the moment when life as I knew it changed. But it was a wake-up call to me as well, in a sense of, I was so clear that I was living a life that was out of alignment with who I truly was. So that led me to go really, really deep into my yoga practice and go really down the rabbit hole with my spiritual practices. And I trained to be a yoga teacher. I finished my PhD. I left academia. I went and taught yoga in the Philippines. And then I just started to just follow step by step, like every impulse within me to create, I just started to follow it. So I was teaching yoga, and then I set up a jewelry company where I was making bespoke, unique jewelry. And then, I started teaching and writing and mentoring. And that's the short version of it, really.
Now, if you guys see the video, you see that Sarah has beautiful jewelry on her hands. Did you make that one? Did you make
Not
those
these,
things?
not these ones, no. But I was obsessed with jewelry and crystals and all sorts of things, and still am, actually.
Yeah. What type of yoga were you teaching?
So really, and I still teach it now, I teach something I call Shakti flow. So it's more of an embodied free flow kind of yoga. I was trained in Hatha and Yin, so I teach those as well, but I'm a bit of a rebel. So I really like to just teach things my own way. And I'm very respectful of all traditions, but I don't adhere to a particular one.
Yeah, I think I've heard of Shakti yoga.
Yeah.
I don't quite remember. There's one teacher out there, and she's very well known for that niche of yoga. Ria something. I can't, it's in the back of my mind, but I just was curious because I used to teach yoga.
Oh, did you?
Before I came to Pilates. And I came to yoga just out of a purpose that the place I was working at said, oh, yoga is very popular now. So that was a long time ago. And when people didn't do yoga, and my manager said, well, we need a yoga teacher. So I found this woman teaching Iyengar yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, that sounds great. She sounds like she knows what she does. And my boss said, well, you have to learn it now too, because in case she gets sick, somebody has to teach the classes. And that's how I got into teaching yoga. And then I dabbled over with Ashtanga and other forms of more breath work in yoga. And lo and behold, this woman that used to work for us back then, after I think 2 years of teaching yoga, and I would go to every yoga class and have my little plan laid out and all this, she just disappeared. And yep, out of the blue, she was like, here, I'm gone starting Monday. And that was a weekend. And I was like, now what? My boss is like, you've been going to the yoga class, go teach. So I had my lesson plan and I said, okay, I'm new to teaching. And people are like, bodies, you're a personal trainer, you do whatever, what to do. And I said, just be patient of how the postures go and how I explain this. But I taught yoga for 3 years. So
wow.
That was a very, and then also, with the mudras, the breath work, the different types of yoga, how they can access the body. It was fascinating. But then I switched over to Pilates and became a total Pilates fan. But the nice thing is when people come to me now and they come from a yoga practice, I understand. Their needs are different. They're looking for something different. They're trained in a different way. So it's like, oh, this is fun. This is going to be fun.
Oh, I love that. And I think so many people are drawn to yoga, and it feels like every second person that I meet is a trained yoga teacher. But I think there's a reason for that. I think people are longing for a connection to themselves and a connection to each other.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what it is. This whole connecting or disconnect, feeling disconnected, and yes, you can do so many boot camp classes, but it's a different way of connecting with your body and not so much with your mind.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So, but you had a very traumatic experience happening in your life. Was this after you started yoga practice, or when did that happen? So tell I know what it is, but our listeners don't. So share with us what happened.
So, I mean, this was, I've been practicing yoga for many, many years. Let's say 13 years. So this is well into my yoga journey. I found myself in a relationship with someone where there were quite a few red flags from the beginning. And as a good girl, a girl that had been taught by her society to downplay her, reactions and, almost gaslight herself, I carried on in a relationship for many years that eventually turned physically violent and abusive. It was already emotionally abusive, but there was one night where I very nearly lost my life. And I don't say that lightly. There were moments when I was being choked and I had my head smashed into a wall and my head was split open. I had to go and get stitches the next day, and it was very violent. There was alcohol involved. So the person in question would, if he had been drinking, this would exacerbate things. And basically I found myself as a poster girl for disempowerment. And even then, I was teaching yoga, I was talking about women's liberation, the liberation of Shakti, but I was the poster girl for disempowerment. And I didn't leave for nearly a year after that incident. And there were a few incidents after as well, where I really, really feared for my life. And eventually I found that the courage and the insight and the understanding that, hey, I knew it all along, but I was like, this is wrong. Like, why are you putting up with this? Like, what makes you think that you deserve this? So it's been, this was a few years ago. It's been really a process of reclamation. And I think the most important thing that I've learned since leaving that relationship is, first of all, just how many women experience this, that it is a systemic issue. So as I started to share my story, because of course before I was lying and I told people, oh, I just slipped, and the whole cliche. But as I started to share my story, almost every single woman I spoke to about it said, that happened to me, or that happened to my friend, or my cousin, or my mother. So suddenly my eyes were open. There's this systemic thing that is quite a taboo subject. And that made me very determined to share my story, not from a place of wanting to place myself as a victim or to even shame the perpetrator, but to kind of shed light on these experiences, because I'm pretty sure that had I had these kind of conversations growing up, or if it was less taboo in our society to talk about this, I'm pretty sure I would have seen my situation in a different light, rather than shaming myself and thinking, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I've made him act this way. I need to try harder and do better, or it's the alcohol, or it's not his fault. It's just when he drinks. I think I would have seen the situation differently. And I believe very much so that our sharing is medicine, not just for ourselves. As I shared about this story, it was like releasing this trauma, this dirty secret that I'd kept, but also it's medicine for the collective. So I would encourage anyone that is listening to this, that maybe even recognizes themselves in my story, I want you to know that it is not your fault, that you should absolutely not be treated this way, and you deserve better. Get out whilst you can.
What was the catalyst for you to actually take the step and leave?
So I moved to Portugal, and we were supposed to, so this was a few years ago, we were supposed to move here together, and he had a job where he couldn't move for a few weeks. And so I moved here by myself. And for the first week, I was like, oh, I miss you. And then the second week, I had this strange feeling. It was this feeling of like, I'm safe. Like, I feel safe. It was almost like I created that space. I was like, I feel safe. And then by the third and fourth week, I was starting to get really nervous about him coming over to join. And I started, the thought process was, okay, well, I need to make sure I make friends here, because if something kicks off, I need someone that can support me. And that was the moment when I caught myself and I was like, what are you doing? So I did some deep soul searching, and I called him and I said, don't come, just don't come. We're not doing this. I'm moving here by myself. And it was the bravest thing that I've ever done, because I was so lonely. I didn't know a soul here. I would wake up in the morning just feeling suicidal, because I was just like, I feel so lost. And it ended up being the best thing that I ever did, because within a few weeks, I started to make friends. I was good with myself. And, eventually I created a home here. So even it, it really is like ripping off the Band-Aid, but ultimately there is pain in any challenging decision that we make, but ultimately it sets us free.
Yeah, because I think I just was reading a book. I mean, I listen to my books, but I was reading my book, and it was very much about a very abusive relationship with the husband and wife, and the daughter was the witness, and it was told from the daughter's perspective. And I had to just halfway through, I was like, I can't do this anymore. This woman just doesn't stand up for herself. She doesn't leave the relationship. And I don't know that there's many women who just don't have the strength to do that. I get it. But I had to just stop reading the book. I said, you know what? I can't take this anymore, because I just wanted to jump in the book and shake the woman and say, why are you letting this person do that to you?
Absolutely. And that would have been my response before. So I used to say, if someone hits me, if whoever I'm in a relationship with hits me, they only do it once. And that wasn't the reality, because usually these situations are this like toxic cocktail of, trauma responses, feeling like there's lots of shame, there's lots of gaslighting, and it's like real kind of psychological manipulation. So it's very, very strange, but having lived through it, I understand how it can happen. And these people can be very, very manipulative. And what also one of the reasons why I stayed so long was because I didn't really believe that I would be strong enough without that relationship. I didn't feel like I could survive financially. I didn't feel like I could survive on my own. And the greatest irony is, as soon as I left that relationship, all aspects of my life started to thrive. But sometimes we tell ourselves these narratives, and they're the narratives that keep us stuck. And I know it was intensely frustrating for one particular friend. So most people didn't really know what was going on, but one friend did. And she had actually been through it herself a few years before. We're still best friends now. She had the foresight to understand that she couldn't make me do anything that I wasn't ready to do. And she was just there for me until the moment when I was ready. And actually, we lost contact for a few months because I just couldn't. I knew she knew I couldn't handle it. But eventually I sent her that message saying, I've left him. And she said, I knew you would. I just had to sit back and wait and be there for you.
Mm-hmm. That's so good that you came to that resolution of the situation, and you're not dead. You're not.
Yeah. Oh my God, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's switch to the priesthood, because I'm super curious about this. So I want to know, what does this priesthood mean to you, or how does a priestess? I mean, a priestess I think of as a goddess. A woman of power, a woman of grace, a woman of kindness and understanding, but strong on the inside. So give me your priesthood, priesthood.
I love that question. So for me, I mean, priestesshood is, So when we look back through ancient history, we can see that although today we live in a society where women and the feminine are reclaiming themselves. It's still not balanced. If we look back in society thousands of years ago, we have a lot of evidence for, pretty balanced societies where men, women, maybe other genders as well, we're not sure, were treated as equal. But then what we can see throughout time is that suddenly women start to be, treated as second-class citizens. You can see this in ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and it kind of trickles through the ages. And essentially, we become a patriarchal society where masculinity and men are deemed as more valuable than women. And we're still living in this kind of society today. It's more subtle in places, not so subtle in places. But if you look in the past, what you can see is, even though there was a decline in feminine and female power, there was, for some women, there was an opportunity to elevate their status and elevate their power, and that was through priestesshood. So we think of, just priests, in this day and age, it's just priests, but there were priestesses. There was the oracle at Delphi called the Pythia. So this is ancient Greece. She was arguably the most powerful woman in the ancient world, because she would have all sorts of leaders coming to her so she could dispense advice, because she was the spokesperson for the god Apollo. And the same with the Vestal Virgins in ancient Rome. These were women who were given the opportunity to keep the fire of Rome burning. And this was a really prestigious role. And, they had status that ordinary women didn't have. And that's not to say that they were free. I mean, these women were picked from birth pretty much to be in these positions, and they were also expected to be chaste. So obviously Rome as a state was policing their bodies. So it's not saying that they were free in the sense, I don't want to over romanticize it, but priestesshood was a doorway to power. It was a doorway to status. And even early Christianity, there were priestesses. There were women, ordained priestesses, who were leading worship. But this got all stamped out about 1,500 years ago. And so modern day priestesshood is about that reclamation. It is about reclaiming our role as, I say, channels for the divine, our living our purpose, channeling divine consciousness. And in more kind of tangible terms, I say that if you feel the desire to create or to teach or to mentor or to educate or to create art or even to seek justice, this is the energy of the priestess, because there is this kind of divine evolution of consciousness at play, but it has to happen through us. And so priestesshood is a way for us to embody the divine and to play our part in the evolution of humanity and our planet.
So what comes to mind in my mind, I'm a very German realist, Me Too movement.
Yeah.
That when all the things you just said, I was just thinking, me too, hashtag me too. Take back your priestesshood. Let's not let others roll over our desires and our needs. Let's reclaim our role in society. And that's been happening, especially the past 2 years, quite noticeably. So when you just spoke about us, I was just thinking, that's the Me Too movement right there, all through history.
Absolutely. The feminine is reclaiming herself. And when I talk about feminine as well, it's not, so, women, that's a gender, but feminine is about feminine energy, feminine traits, feminine approaches, and it's available to all of us, no matter what sex we are or what gender that we identify as. And, it's so much bigger than just women reclaiming themselves. We see that, now that we're becoming really conscious of, climate change and the fact that our planet is struggling and ecosystems are on the brink of collapse. And so now we're we're wanting to rush to help, that is feminine energy. That is, we want to reconnect to nature. That's the rise of the feminine as well. So yeah, the Me Too movement it highlights that the feminine is rising because it's been so out of balance. And it may even feel like a bit of a pendulum swing at the moment. It's almost like suddenly everything is feminine empowerment, but we need that because we don't thrive if we're not in balance between masculine and feminine. And ultimately that is my biggest hope for our world.
For everything, our nature, everything, our planet.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, Sarah, you talk about Dharma too. What is Dharma and what does it represent?
So Dharma for me is, it's kind of mixed up with your purpose. It's this sense of the role that you're here to contribute at any given time. And I think that one of the things about purpose that can get people really overwhelmed and in a twist is there's this idea that there's one life purpose, and if you don't know what it is and you can't find it, then you get stressed out. And I don't believe in that. I believe that we have a purpose in every single moment. That's what Dharma is. It's this sense of like, we are here to contribute something. So it takes us out of the lens of individualism and allows us to look through the world through the lens of collectivism, the sense of what am I here to contribute? Because ultimately, we are our most fulfilled when we feel that we are contributing to something and our lives have a greater meaning than just, I get up, I do my job, I don't really like it, I feed the kids, blah, blah, blah. So that's for me what Dharma is. Dharma is it's really listening to those impulses to contribute and create and to recognize that we're worthy enough to have our voices heard, to have our creations out in the world, and to recognize that we are always going to be in process as well. That there's no end point, that we seem to think that, once we've met this goal, then, life, we've made it, and that's not it. It's just about being in process and enjoying the process and doing the best you can.
Yeah, it's very true, which brings me, this trickles down in the whole conversation today, which brings me to the topic of, in the age group of over 50s, we're dealing with ageism. We're dealing with, I'm going to be 60 in a couple of weeks. That, I know, right? I was like, what?
Love it.
And so we're dealing a lot with that ageism, that we're too old for jobs, that we're getting wrinkly skin, that we're not as juicy on social media, that we don't have the perky butt that we see so much on social. When you think about how do we rewire ourselves in that thinking of youth, only young people can perform, only young people, whatever young means, is at 20. My daughter's almost 30. I mean, when I look at her, I'm thinking, okay, yes, I'm her mom, and I'm definitely clearly older and look shrivelier than I have. But in my mind, I am not old. I haven't aged to that decrepit age where you can't think anymore. But we're seeing everything on social. It's all about young, juicy, perky, and anybody, and I'm very proud of my own gray hair. This is all mine. And I let my hair grow gray about 2 years ago. And I said, I'm just going to embrace me. So I want to know from you, what's your take on all this, what I just threw at you?
Well, I love that you speak about that, because I'm 33 and I'm starting to see the lines coming up on my face. I live in the sun, blah, blah, blah. And, it's hit me too. It's this sense of, okay, well, I don't look as young as I did. And I know that some of your listeners will be like, come on, you're in your 30s. But still, what I'm saying is that this comes up for women of all ages. And my take on it, and I wrote about this in my book, my take on it is it's patriarchy, because nobody says that about men. No one says, you need to dye your hair, or you need to go and get Botox. And I think that it's very telling about our society that we worship youth, and it's almost like we infantilize our women. We want our women to look like children, even in body shape, like this tall, skinny models without a butt or without any breasts. We want our women to have smooth, like flawless skin, no gray hair. And we want our women to be like children, because what are children? Children we can control. And I think there's something to be said for a society that doesn't celebrate the expression lines on a woman's face. The fact that heaven forbid that she should laugh too much, or she should throw her head back and have experienced all different things, and for it to show on her body. So I think it's very, very sad. But I also see that women are now in the process of reclaiming that. One of the things that I love about living here in Portugal is that so many women in their 30s and their 40s are letting themselves go gray. All of my friends with all our gray hairs are starting to come through, and we are not dyeing them. It's a way of saying F you, to this idea of who we're supposed to be. And what is it? What's the phrase? Like, well-behaved women rarely make history.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree. We're breaking out in my circle of friends. We're all talking about fighting against this ageism that we, look at us, we're in our 50s and 60s and 70s, and we have a healthy body. We have a healthy mindset. It's not about being skinny and lean and Botoxed, but about healthy and strong and vibrant. And that can come through at any age, no matter what you look, and, diving into like jobs. And this will be getting into a little bit different venue of what we're talking about today, although you are a business coach as well. So, but it is refreshing to hear from a woman could be my daughter, to say, yeah, look at me, I got wrinkles too. And who cares?
Yes.
Who cares? It's like, my daughter is like you. She's two. She's like, she's like, I look at you, Mom, and I know I'm gonna look like you when I'm 60. She's like, I got nothing to worry about.
Yeah. And we're also our biggest critic, because I look at the women. So many of my friends are older. Many of my clients are actually in their 60s as well, which is like, yes. And I just see them as an inspiration. And actually, I have a mentor who's 77. We work together on, she's my Tantra teacher. She's 77. And oh my goodness, she is so sexy. She just oozes this like sex appeal because she loves herself. And she's got wrinkles and she's, sagging, but it's really, it's that inner work, like you said, the healthy body, the healthy mindset, that is what's really, really attractive. And it's a reclamation. And yeah, I really, really refuse to dye my hair and get Botox. And it's a process to try and fall in love with my wrinkles, because I look at them and I go, oh, but that's just conditioning.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, well, we're printed upon us. That's what we should be believing. That's what we should be thinking. Now, I want to know, what is sacred activism, Sarah? Describe that to me. And how does sacred activism intersect with business? Because that's part of what you do as well.
Absolutely. I think sacred activism to me is this sense of allowing our businesses, allowing our lives to be vehicles for individual, social, and planetary justice. Think that ultimately there has been a narrative about, build your own business, create individual freedom, that has been great, but it's only part of the picture. And my belief is that individual success, particularly in business, it's not really true success unless we are kind of rooting for everyone, and we are trying to we're making sure that our vehicles are creating freedom for everyone. So I have 3 kind of pillars that I really kind of incorporate into my business and I teach my clients. And that is self-care, people care, and earth care. So I'm always making sure that my business, to the best of my ability, is not harming me. So I'm rejecting hustle and grind culture and toxic capitalism, this idea that I'm only successful if I keep scaling my business all the time. Like, no, that is not good for me. And I make sure that I have a lot of space and time for my yoga and my walks with my dog and my friends. And lifestyle is important. And then people care is making sure that what I am teaching in my business, what I am sharing, what I'm creating, what I'm writing, isn't perpetuating toxic narratives that actually disempower people. Making sure that I'm aware of the systemic issues, not gaslighting people, not victim shaming. Also making sure that there's equity in my business, so that I'm not just serving white affluent people. Basically, I'm ensuring that there is a way that I can bring people from all different backgrounds in and make sure that not only they feel welcome, but also that there are processes in place that they can feel, seen and understood. And then there's also earth care, recognizing that now in this day and age, material wealth means absolutely nothing if we are just constantly consuming resources and ultimately contributing to the destruction of ecosystems. And for sure, it is systemic, but we have a duty to make sure that we are as sustainable in our business practices as we can be. And, in some ways we can give back. So I donate, a percentage of my profits to forest regenerative initiatives and all the things that really are in alignment with my mission. And I also make sure that I'm not perpetuating a narrative about success that is based on material wealth, because ultimately that's just going to keep getting us into trouble. So that's my sacred activism. And it's a process, and I'm sure I have many blind spots, but yeah, I'm doing the best I can.
A friend of mine, we were in a group together in a mastermind, and we're talking about how to organize our content in the group and all this. And we're talking about hashtags for social media. And I suggested boss babe. And she says, I reject the notion of boss babe, because that implies that I have to make a 6 to 7 figure business, that I have to hustle and that I have to grind. So it just came to mind when you said that. And I said, I know, I think the same thing. It just came to mind. And she says, I know what you wanted to help. And I feel the same way, that we're constantly, as a business owner. And I mean, I own 2 small businesses. One is Pursue Your Spark, my online business. And I have a small brick and mortar studio, which is currently also an online studio. Because of COVID, the clients are all switched to online. Is that it is not about the big ass dollars we're making. Mm-mm. It's really the difference that we make and one thing I like what you keep saying, and I don't hear this as much in the US, is a collective thinking. Mm-hmm. US is more about me. Not for everybody. Yes, I understand that, but so too many people talk about just what they want, not what is good for everybody. And yeah. And you're a European, you know exactly what I'm talking about, of how this backfires in our society when we are just thinking about ourselves. And here in the US, it's about healthcare. My husband and I, we just can't believe that people are against having healthcare for everybody, because they may have to pay initially maybe a little bit more, but and it's another thing. Why don't you think collectively? Why does it not okay to recycle? Why is it not okay to treat our planet like shit? It's not okay. So I am like, yeah, you're going deep down into my European soul. So for all listeners, this is the true hike, and this is how I think too. And Sarah just unleashed it.
Well, I mean, I would also say that as of yet, I don't see so many people in general talking about this in the online business space. You know, there are a handful of us at the moment, regardless of whether, you know, you're European or American. But I do think that it's now, I feel like me and my peers, we're at the forefront of something, because I find myself just seeing online, oh, I made 7 figures in like, you know, 3 months and woohoo. And I just think, okay, great, good for you. What the hell are you going to do with that money? Where is it going? How are you contributing? You know, because it's money in itself. I'm all for money. You know, I love money. It's a tool. How do we direct it? And so when you're talking of, you know, when people are talking about these scaling to 6, 7, 8, whatever figures, it's like, why is that the measuring stick for our success? And more importantly, what are you going to do with it? Because that money is going to be absolutely useless if our planet breaks, which, you know, our ecosystems are dying.
Yeah, very true. Now, when you talk about your truest expression, do you talk about authenticity?
Yeah. Authenticity has become a bit of a buzzword. Oh, just be authentic. But we've not been taught how to be authentic. So for me, authenticity is a deep exploration of who we are at the core of our being and who we're not. And this takes time to really understand what our true values are. I've definitely got caught up in narratives that sounded good, but ultimately on reflection, you know, I was like, oh, this is not really me. Particularly, I think when you have an online brand as well, it's quite easy to get sucked up into other people's messages, and yeah, we have to go slow. Very often go slow and question every assumption that we have about the way life works, about the way business works, about the way that we work. This is how we really start to really understand who we are. And from that space, we can start to be authentic. And I think that ultimately authenticity means being you and being true to your values to the best of your ability, recognizing you're always going to be in process, recognizing you're never going to get it right, you're never going to get it perfect. But ultimately, bringing more of you to the table, living in as much wholeness as you can. So not just the highlight reel, not just the filters, the hashtag filters, oh, you know, this is my rags to riches story, but bringing all of it. And I do to the best of my ability. And I'm in process with this, but I try to bring everything to what I do, like the shadow, the light, the expansion, the contraction, like everything, just show it. It doesn't mean you have to be a hot mess all the time and show yourself as a hot mess, but to bring people on that journey with you. Because I think sometimes when we see the highlight reels, we imagine that everyone else's lives are like that, and we think there's something wrong with us when, you know, we're not all high vibe, you know.
That's true. Oh, that's so true. It's like, I'm always gorgeous, I'm always perky, I'm always like,
yeah,
on the go.
No. Definitely not.
So
no.
How do we move past the fear of judgment? Because we're being judged right and left, no matter what age. Women are more judged than men, and we judge each other harshly. But how do we move past that fear of judgment?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. This is something that comes up with my clients all the time. And I think the key is compassion, is having compassion for ourselves and recognize that it does hurt when people judge us, and it is scary to put ourselves out there and show ourselves to the world. So having compassion, but also having compassion for the people that are judging, because ultimately a judgment is it's never about us. If someone judges us, it's never about us, it's projection from the other person. And likewise, when I find myself judging people, and boy do I like to take the mirror and look at myself and be like, what is it that I'm rejecting in myself right now that I'm rejecting in that other person? So we have to be really compassionate with ourselves. We have to be compassionate with other people and recognize that we're all we're all very traumatized in our society, and we all go around just triggering each other all the time. And healing comes from being with ourselves, feeling our emotions, being compassionate with ourselves, being compassionate with other people, and just doing the damn thing that we want to do.
Yeah. So how do we reclaim our lives then and live empowered and fulfilled lives?
Mm. Oh, well, I mean, this is for another podcast episode, but I mean, I could go on for ages.
I saved the most powerful questions. I was just on a roll before we got started talking. I was like, okay, what does Heike want to know? And these are the questions.
I love that. Or I hope it's serving you. For me, if reflecting upon my process with this, because I think it's different for all of us, but reflecting upon my process, like feeling like I'm contributing, that's been a theme that's been coming up a lot during this interview. Feeling like I'm contributing to something is a way for me to feel empowered, specifically when it comes to feminine empowerment, this idea of empowering the feminine. For me, it's creating a lot of space for my creativity. Mm-hmm. And a lot of space to follow my creative impulses, because that's very feminine in essence. Also, allowing myself to not have to be logical and to instead use my intuition and make decisions based from that, from a felt sense that is ultimately very, very feminine, rather than always having to, be logic and justify and have rationale behind every decision. I think that sometimes it's not making decisions from that place can be just really overwhelming. So instead, living intuitively, like allowing that process to play out in our lives as well. And also, in terms of feminine empowerment, is cultivating a deep trust of ourselves and our resourcefulness, and the fact that no matter what happens in our lives, not only can we handle it, but we can use it as fertilizer to thrive. Even the shadowy stuff, even the most terrible things that we're all afraid of happening, we can use them if we desire. And trusting life itself, I think that's perhaps the hardest thing, is to trust that life is really rooting for us, and just to keep looking for the evidence that it is. And it may be difficult at first. You think, no, this world is a horrible place. But actually, if you start to look through the lens of what if everything was happening for our healing, our growth, and our success, you start to look for the evidence, your experience of life changes drastically.
Yeah, I think you said a good word, for us, not against us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because oftentimes we feel like the whole world is against us and nothing goes right and nothing happens, or we feel like we're stuck in place and can't move anywhere. And so I think is that we have those choices to do whatever we deem necessary is really empowering.
Yes, absolutely.
So what would you tell my listeners of how to start living their own priesthood? What would they do if somebody listens to this and says, oh yeah, this is really cool, but what do I do now?
So the first step is really to cultivate a strong connection with your body. This means allowing yourself to feel your emotions so that they don't get stuck, so that you can allow them to move through. Cultivating a relationship with your intuition, which is always a felt sense in the body. It's not a logical thought. It's a felt sense of expansion or contraction. And really, allowing yourself to primarily cultivate a very strong relationship with your body, to reclaim your body, to reclaim every curve, every line, every, that is like the core, the foundation of reclaiming the feminine. And then starting to explore what it is that you feel that you're here for. Like, what is it that you wish you could spend your life doing, but maybe you think you don't have the right qualifications, you're not good enough, everyone else is doing it. Question those beliefs, question those thoughts, because you are already unique. So you don't have to try and be unique. And you are not given a desire without a capacity to fulfill it. That's my belief. So getting curious about that, and also getting curious about, well, what is it that you judge in other people? You see someone else doing something and you're triggered by it because deep down you wish you could be doing it. These are our clues to understanding what our Dharma is, what our purpose at the moment is. And this is how we reclaim the feminine, or our feminine power, and our sense of purpose in the world. So that's what I would suggest.
Easy peasy, simple steps.
Yeah, simple steps. Yeah, you're on your way now. But it's obviously a process.
And it is, from my experience, it is the hardest thing to do when people come to me and say, "Hi, I want to lose weight. I want to get in shape." To do the mind work, which nobody really wants to do. They say, "Give me a meal plan, give me an exercise program, just let me do." And I'm like, no. We need to dig deep down first. Why do you want to do this? What does it mean to you? Did somebody else say you should do this? Or whatever, all the things you said, to do the mind work before you actually get, so you get clarity to take the steps that are necessary to reach your goals, whatever your goals. And like, you coach businesses. What's the goal in your business? You don't want to be a boss babe, but what do you want to be instead? What kind of business owner do you want to be?
That's it. One of especially in business, it's goals are arbitrary, and we create goals because we think they're going to make us feel a certain way. Like, when I hit this goal, then I will feel happy. And also, so many of the goals, like if someone comes to me and they're like, "I want a 6-figure business," and I'm like, "Great." Why? Where has that come from? And sometimes these goals that we're given they've been given to us. They're not even really our goals. So actually, what you're saying is fantastic, because it's really about, well, we have to understand our why. And then we can even bypass the goal, because really it's about lifestyle. Okay, I want to feel this way. Okay, well, how can you cultivate that in your day-to-day life? And then the success, in inverted commas, becomes the byproduct of that. And that is the feminine way.
Yeah. So Sarah, how can people reach you and get your book?
Amazing. So, well, if you have enjoyed this interview, then I love to hear from you guys. So feel free to follow me on Instagram and send me a message. You can find me at Dr. Sarah Coxon, and just tell me what resonated. One of the things about social media is that we can use it to connect, and I love to hear from you guys. So it's not just about likes and follows. And also, if you're interested in this and you want to understand the concept of priestesshood deeper and relate it to your own life and reclaim your feminine power and your divine purpose, then my book is available in Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, Amazon, Book Depository, pretty much anywhere that books are sold online. And I've had a lot of really nice feedback from the books. So if you feel called, check it out.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge today with us, Sarah. I really appreciate it for you coming on the show and talking about something that I don't know anything about.
I love it.
I think.
No, well, you do it at a soul level, but also thank you so much for your time and your platform. I really, really appreciate it.
So listeners, you heard how to reach Sarah, but you also know how you can reach me on Instagram at Heike Yates, and Heike Yates Pursue Your Spark on Facebook. We do want to hear from you. And I keep saying this, every interview I have, reach out to us, ask questions. Tell us how the episode touched you or helped you or ignited something in your life. We want to hear from you. And with that, we'll see you next week on the Pursue Your Spark podcast. Ciao.